If you were raised Catholic and have been thinking about reconnecting with God, but you're not sure how He will feel about it, keep watching. My name is Jennifer, and I help people journey toward God and toward the Catholic Church. I accompany them along their journey. And this channel is Back to Catholic, where we talk about the things that people who are raised Catholic struggle with. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And in the meantime, the story I have for you today is about Simon Peter. I'm sure you've heard of him. He was one of the disciples that Jesus called very early in his ministry. And Simon was a fisherman. He was about as religious as any of the other Jews of the time. And when Jesus called him, the very first thing Simon at the time did was fall to his knees and ask Jesus to leave him because he felt completely unworthy to have Jesus in his presence. And Jesus's response was basically not even to answer him at all. He just asked him, "Follow me." And they spent 3 years together, along with the other 11 apostles. And Peter spent all that time living with Jesus, watching his miracles, watching him heal people, listening to everything he taught, both in public and in private. And Peter was even one of the apostles. There were 3 of them, Peter, James, and John, who were taken by Jesus to see things that none of the other apostles saw. For instance, there was a young girl, the daughter of Jairus, who died, and Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him when he raised that little girl from the dead. So Peter was one of Jesus's closest apostles. And at the Last Supper, the night before, just before Jesus was arrested, Jesus told all of his apostles at the Last Supper that they would flee from him soon. And they didn't really understand what was going on. All of the Jews of the time expected the Messiah to be a king who would overthrow the Roman government and reestablish the Davidic kingship, the Davidic monarchy. And they were expecting a soldier, someone really, really powerful. And of course, the apostles knew that Jesus was powerful because they had seen him work amazing miracles, like multiplying 5 loaves and 2 fish into enough to feed a crowd of 5,000 people. And as I said, raising people from the dead, healing the blind, healing the lame. So they had all seen all of this, but they weren't prepared for what Jesus was actually doing, which involved his suffering and death. So he told them that they would be scattered the night that he was betrayed. And Peter in particular, okay, I need to go back a little bit because Simon's name was Simon, but somewhere along the way, Jesus gave him a special calling. He told him, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." So the word Peter comes from the Greek word Petra, but Jesus wasn't speaking Greek, he was speaking Aramaic. And in Aramaic, the word was Kepha, which means rock. So, but in translation into Greek, they translated it Petros, which is the masculine form of the feminine Greek word Petra, which means rock. I'm getting into too many details. I do that a lot. Anyway, his name was changed to Peter to signify this new mission that Jesus was calling him to, that he would be the leader of the 12 apostles, that he would be the one to strengthen and lead his brothers after Jesus' death. Peter didn't really realize any of that at the time. He knew that he was receiving a special calling, but he didn't understand what it all meant as it was happening. So anyway, now he's called Peter. And at the Last Supper, Jesus told Peter, "You will betray me. You will deny you even knew me 3 times. before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, this will have happened. And Peter, of course, denied that that would ever happen. He had no intention of betraying Jesus. He loved Jesus. He wanted to serve him. He was constantly offering to defend him and die for him. But the reality of the situation was everything turned out exactly the way Jesus said it would. After the Last Supper, he took the apostles out into the Garden of Gethsemane. Judas, of course, had already left to go and get the temple guard to come back and arrest Jesus. And Peter and the other apostles went to the Garden of Gethsemane. And while they were there, of course, you know the scene. The 8 of the apostles go off. He tells them to stay there. And he takes, again, Peter, James, and John deeper into this olive grove. And he tells them, wait here and pray that you may not be tempted. And he goes a little farther on and he prays like he's never prayed before. He's in so much anguish that he's sweating blood. He knows what's about to happen to him. And even though Jesus is God, he also is fully human. And he was experiencing with his human body and human emotions everything that you would expect a man to experience who has foreknowledge of what was about to happen to him. When you think about the way he was beaten and the way they pushed a crown of thorns onto his head, the way he was spat upon and insulted, and ultimately the way he was crucified, nailed to a cross. He knew all of that was about to happen. And so in the garden, he prayed that the Father would give him the strength to endure it. Initially, he prayed, Father, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me. And yet he also prayed, not my will be done, but yours. So there was this struggle within him of wanting to do the Father's will with all his heart, and also knowing what was about to come, wrestling with what that would take, and wishing that it could happen another way. So he's in this agony in the garden, in the olive grove, and he comes back to where Peter and James and John are supposed to be, waiting there and praying, and he finds them asleep. And he wakes them up and he says to them, could you not watch 1 hour with me? And of course they're horrified that they've fallen asleep. And he tells them again, pray. Satan is going to tempt you. Spend this time in prayer. And he goes again further into the garden to pray. And in the meantime, they again fall asleep. So eventually, you know the rest of the story. He comes back out. He wakes them up. They go back out to where the other apostles are. And in the meantime, Judas has led the crowd of temple guards into the garden. He comes and gives Jesus a kiss on the cheek to indicate to the guards which person they ought to arrest. And Jesus is arrested and taken to the house of the high priest so that they can have an emergency trial for him. The leaders of the Jews, the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin was what it was called. It's like a council of all the leaders of the Jews. And so Peter and John follow, and somehow I think John knows someone who is a servant. And so they're able to get into the courtyard where all of this is happening. And obviously Jesus is inside on trial, and James and Peter are in the courtyard. And everyone, all the servants, there are a bunch of people standing around, they're all gossiping about what's going on. And someone in the crowd accuses Peter of being a follower of Jesus, and he immediately denies it. And a little later on, someone else says to him, you sound like you're from Galilee. I think you're one of his disciples. And Peter again denies it. And then a third time, someone insists that he must be one of Jesus's disciples. And not only does he deny it, but he swears oaths. He's swearing, I never even knew this man. Now, what he was thinking or feeling at the time, was it fear? What, I don't know. Was it, who knows what he was thinking? He probably was fear. You can let me know what you think, but he had done it. He had 3 times denied that he even knew Jesus, and immediately he heard the rooster crow and knew what he had done and was so ashamed. So, you know the rest of the story. Jesus was crucified. He, 3 days later, rose from the dead. And later, when he appeared to his apostles, this is the story I want to focus on with you. They were out fishing because, as I mentioned, Peter was a fisherman. It probably gave him comfort to go back to something that he had known in a very familiar way. He was a fisherman, so he didn't know what else to do with himself. So he went back to fishing. And they were all in the boat, and Jesus was standing on the beach. And he had a charcoal fire with fish that he was cooking. And the boat was coming back, and they saw him and recognized him. And when they got back to the beach, Jesus had... Now, you tell me what you think, but I imagine that when Peter saw Jesus, probably his first emotion was initially excitement and then shame. That's how I probably would have reacted if I were Peter, knowing that I had done exactly what he said that I was going to do. I don't know exactly what Peter was thinking or feeling in that moment, but I, in my own mind, imagine I would have been feeling shame. And Jesus asks Peter, Peter, do you love me? And again, that probably, if I were in Peter's situation, I would have felt pain in that moment. And he answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus answered, feed my sheep. And then he said to him again, Peter, do you love me? And Peter again answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my lambs. And then a third time, Jesus said to Peter, Peter, do you love me? And Peter, probably feeling devastated that Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me? Answered him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. So, did Jesus come back to him initially saying, Peter, I told you you were going to betray me. I told you that would happen. See how weak you are? He didn't at all emphasize any of that. By asking him 3 times, do you love me? He was gently reminding Peter, this is where you've come from, but he's inviting him to a different path now, back on track with Jesus. He's inviting him back. And so you might be wondering, okay, how should I respond to this? And I guess what I'd like you to do is imagine yourself on that beach. And imagine, with your own background, all of the things that you've experienced in your life, all of the things that you've done, imagine Jesus asking you the same question he asked Peter. Do you love me? There's no question that Jesus loves you. He was beaten, spat upon, crucified to prove that he loves you. There is no question that he does. The only question is, how will you respond to him? So, what will you do about it? I guess just talk to him. In your own mind, in your own prayer. let him know the answer to that question. But above all, rest assured that he loves you. He's asking now, do you love me? If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the comments below. And please be assured of my prayers for you, and know that in everything, most especially, God loves you and wants you to follow him. God bless you.